It's Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com. Let's talk about Hocus Pocus Clinchecks. And Hocus Pocus Clinchecks is one of those words I made up. And I'm using Clincheck like I'm using Kleenex. So I'm not talking about it in terms of align technology. I'm talking about any aligner setup. So I could rephrase this, how to avoid Hocus Pocus junk aligner setups, but it's just not as fun as the title I have. So anyways, suggestions. First of all, this is one of those things that I feel like you got to work on. I know you guys are like, why does she keep trying to talk about her services? I don't care. I don't care I truly don't care if you use me or use somebody else. Just use somebody, because maybe it's just my sense of like values and justice, but the whole reason that I'm doing a lot of this consulting is that I am so tired of seeing really bad, damaged people, whether it be my friends that just had crappy ortho. Like, what the hell were they thinking? And yeah, no, I'm not reading their chart and I don't know everything. Maybe they weren't compliant or maybe they weren't going on. But these are people I know and I believe them. You know what I mean? If someone just walks in my office, I don't know them from Adam. Who knows? I'm never going to judge the dentist, right? But what it comes down to a lot of times, it was one thing when a while ago when we were braces, right? So I knew that it was orthodontists for the most part doing it. So if something was junk, okay, then that was probably that doctor. But now we have a third party involved. And sometimes we have a fourth party. So a lot of people are doing ortho, but a lot of people are outsourcing their ortho. They're either outsourcing their ortho to a guided orthodontics company, be it a third party company that does the treatment plan, be it the Clin Check or the aligner setup. And then that company in turn sends it to the lab who fabricates, and then you just hit approve, or they're outsourcing it to their team. But regardless, sometimes the mechanics is hocus pocus. And that's my word for bullshit. So if you work with me on a case, I'll be like, bullshit treatment plan. Like, I just yell it, bullshit treatment plan. This is not happening, okay? There is no way these movements will happen. They are impossible. And that's where an orthodontist with experience in braces can look at a treatment plan and be like, bullshit. I call bullshit on that. If you get a bunch of orthodontists, and this was one of the funnest things I did, it was a couple months ago. I was in the Pacific Northwest at an Invisalign conference that was only orthodontists. And I've only done this a few times. And to be honest, I like hanging out with orthodontists, but they are not a fan of me for obvious reasons. So I get a lot of side eyes and nasty looks and comments and mumbles under your breath and stuff like that. And that's fine. You're allowed to do that. It's not the most comfortable experience for me being hated. And I think if they knew what I was doing and why I was doing it, which is why I'm just starting to be way more transparent with you guys. And I'm kind of giving you guys verbal diarrhea on these videos, but I'm not a bad person. And matter of fact, what I'm doing is to help people ultimately. And someday people will get it. In some ways, I think of myself almost like, I know this is like a huge leap to put myself in anywhere in the room of the great John Mew. And no matter what you think of John Mew and mewing and orthotropics, he is brilliant. He was brilliant. He still is brilliant. He passed last week. Definitely one of my major mentors, one of my goals. I was hoping to either meet him in Australia or meet him in the UK, since now I'm working with Dr. Simon Wong, who is a visionary. So when I tell you someone's a visionary, they're a visionary. That means I'm not taking a dime from them. I follow them because they are a visionary. So they're willing to look outside the box and think of things not in the neurocentric way that AAO has been doing it for 50 years. Come on. There's a reason why orthodontics has changed. And there's a reason why all these venture capitalists took over it, because we weren't doing things right the way the patients wanted us to. So anyways, I've gotten on a super big tangent, shocker, but back to the Hocus Pocus Clinchecks. Listen, most Clinchecks are being generated by AI now. Okay. Yes, they have technicians who might look at it and they might not. Okay. So you don't know if AI only touched your Clin Check or not, or if a human did. And even if the human did, you don't know how well they looked at it or what their knowledge base is or what their values are. So as far as I'm concerned, I think every Clin Check you look at, and again, I'm using the word Clin Check for junk aligner setup. Or just an aligner setup. You should look at anyone from any company. I'm not talking about Align Technology specifically. I'm talking about any company out there. You should look at it as it's made by AI. And it could look at it as bullshit. Look at it as bullshit. Every single one. Be like, is this really possible? And I think that kind of stinks because a lot of you have been trained when you take your courses, an orthodontist will look at your plan. We're going to make this plan for you. All you have to do is push submit. That is BS, okay? Total BS. And I'm going to tell you again, nobody going to save you. If you hit okay on this plan, thinking that it's okay because they said it's okay, or went through an engine, or went through some orthodontist that works there. If you hit okay on that, and you don't really understand everything, you don't understand all the alternatives, why this is that, why this is there, why this is that, what to look for as you go on, and something heads south on that plan, you will be liable. You, your office, you. Not that aligner company, not that third-party company, it's you. That's part of the whole terms and conditions. Because you need to know when something's not right, okay? And I'd be honest, I was very trusting of a lot of things because you go to courses and they say, yes, this will work. Yes, this does this. And a lot of times I'd scratch my head and put on my braces cap. I was an orthodontist who did braces and phase 1 interceptive first before all this came out. And I'm like, I don't think so, but I'll give it a try. And then, of course, I'm very cautious and I'm looking for certain things. And the second things don't go the way I like it, boom, we're going to change it, right? But the problem is those of you who aren't orthodontists, who are trained only in braces, you don't have that ability, which is why you need to work with an orthodontist on your first so many cases. And yes, it's not free, okay? But I'm going to tell you, it is the best use of your funds. You can subscribe to these engines and all this stuff and all these courses where they do rah-rahs, and guess what? That's not going to help you be a better clinician. So like I told you, all these companies are looking for profit, okay? Orthodontics right now is a race to the bottom. The price that we charge for cases hasn't kept up with inflation, whereas the lab fees have kept up with inflation and then some. It is a losing proposition to get into orthodontics only. Orthodontics has to be get into as a step to do more dentistry, as a step for more wellness. That's what an orthodontist is. I don't think it's sustainable for the rest of your life. Now, I've told you guys I have some plans. I think there are ways to make it sustainable, but not in the current system. So I'm just waiting out my time until I can do something that I actually want to do. Besides this, I love what I'm doing right now. This is a placeholder for what I'm really going to do in the future when the time's right. But anyways, work with somebody, okay? If you don't like me and I'm too much for you, I'm too much for a lot of people, so I get it. But I can send you to plenty of orthodontists who are doing this. They may not do it quite like me. They may not have the same training. They may not have the same philosophy. They might not be as available, but their prices might be better. But I suggest you do something that is not asynchronous, which means you meet with the orthodontist either face-to-face, could be someone in your community, or over a Zoom, where you're actually talking to them, asking questions. They're asking you questions. And, you're going over all these things. Because sometimes when it's asynchronous, you don't really get all your questions answered. And you don't really understand things, So, okay, sorry for the big word ramble here. But I just really makes me frustrated that I feel like there's more hocus pocus orthodontics going on now with AI taking over than there ever was. And sometimes I just look at these cases and I just can't stop laughing because it's just so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. All right. Thanks so much.